Welcome back. I'm Kristen. I'm an alcoholic. The Fellowship of the Spirit Conference is dedicated to carrying the message of Alcoholics Anonymous as set forth in the book Alcoholics Anonymous to both alcoholics and family members of alcoholic families, including Al-Anon family groups. The workshop is one of the ways we hope to share our experience, strength, and hope, focusing on the 12 steps of the program of recovery. Our next workshop will be focused on steps 6 and 7. Our panelists will each share for 10 to 15 minutes on steps 6 and 7, and then we'll open the mic up again for you guys to share your experience. I hope. And so I didn't read 4 and 5 last time, so I'm reading 6 and 7. Step 6 is we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. And we're going to start with Camille. I was just telling her that in my experience it can be a little difficult to speak for a while on step 6 and 7, but they're really, really important. So I thought very carefully about the two people that I think will do an excellent job at talking about this stuff. So this is Camille. I didn't read your paragraph, did I? Sorry. Just kidding. Okay, on page 76, first paragraph, if we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can He now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing.
Hi, everybody. Is this on? I'm Camille. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Camille.
Grateful to be here this morning. Thank you, Kristen, for asking me to speak. I have no idea. I'm going to fill up 10 to 15 minutes on 6 and 7, but I'm just going to start talking. That's how it usually works. My first experience with 6 and 7, I had finished my first 5th step. And I honestly don't clearly remember how, I don't think it was at the time, like at the moment of my 5th step, that I was introduced to 6. I think it was like a week later, or I don't really remember. But I remember thinking, like, that's it? Like, okay, now I'm supposed to go do amends now? And, like, that's all you're going to give me? You know, I didn't have confidence in it, but I mean, that was kind of a theme through my early sobriety. I didn't trust the steps, even though I was working them. And I remember at one point that sponsor suggested a book to me, which is not, I don't think it's AA-approved literature, but I know a lot of people who have, it's helped them a lot. It's called Drop the Rock. And I remember when she said, maybe you should get that book called Drop the Rock. I just thought, that's rude, you know, like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm really working these steps. So I'm not holding a rock. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. It made me, I felt like she was judging me. But once again, that's where I was at, I look back on it now and I'm so grateful to her. She, like, put up with so much. I was so critical and controlling. And, I mean, I barely let her help me, It was like, are you sure? I was questioning everything she taught me. And I thought AA had to be revamped and I was going to fix it. And I mean, it was like really sick. So 6 and 7 are important because it's about willingness to let go of defects, which is what we discover in the steps right before that, right? So I was meditating last night and I may have heard this from somewhere, but it just struck me that 6 and 7 are right in the middle, exactly. So you have 1 through 6, and then there's that space, right? The space between, and then 7 and 12. They're like, if you come in from either side, that's the middle point, which to me is kind of like, it also just, I saw how 6 and 7, it's kind of like, that's like every step. Like, for me, I'm not going to stay sober if I'm not willing to surrender to something greater than myself. And I need to know, for me, I need to know what it is that I'm letting go of. And that's where 4 helps me, all those steps up. I get willing, I realize I have a problem. I get willing to do something about it. I actually sit down and get honest and someone helps me do that because I can't do it by myself. And then once I'm able to clearly see what those defects are, with the help of someone else, I pray for the willingness, right? I ask for the willingness until it comes, and then it comes when it comes. I can't force it. It's a gift. It's grace. Like I said, it's that space between. There's like, I have to do the work, and then it's like God's there, like making the change. I'm not doing it. I'm doing the work, but I'm letting God make the change. That's what 6 and 7 are about to me. And the 7th step prayer, I had learned the 3rd step prayer, obviously, like along the way before I knew the 7th step prayer. And I would use that all the time. And then once I learned the 7th step prayer, I started saying that a lot. And right now in my sobriety, I say the 7th step prayer every morning. First thing, upon awakening. Like for me, it's part of that morning ritual. And I actually, at one point, I still do this, where I list every single character defect that's going on for me. And honestly, it's like the 7 deadly sins. It's like, resentment, fear, anger, pride. I just list everything because I have all those. And I have them every day when I wake up. I wake up terrified every day still. Like, that's just my experience. I don't know. I have issues with waking up. I don't like waking up. I know that's not true for everyone. Some people are morning people. That's just where I'm at. I swear. It's really rare for me to wake up and just be, yay! Like, I usually wake up and I'm terrified. And so I learned something that's helped me so much was, when I moved on through the rest of the steps to upon awakening, and I use that 7th step prayer, and I pray for the willingness first. Please help me be willing to let go of these defects of character. And then I say the 7th step prayer. And it depends on the day, but a lot of times I can actually feel stuff being lifted before I get out of bed. It's like, oh, okay, good. Okay, and then I can move on through my day. And I use that prayer whenever I need it. Like if I feel, throughout the day that I'm like getting stuck in some weird place. And that's just kind of how it works. It's like it's hard to describe because it's so subtle. It's like, I didn't get it for a long time. I was like, I don't understand those steps. But really, I think for me, it's just an ongoing practice, because inevitably each day I'm going to hit a wall of some sort, usually like some really uncomfortable place, or something where someone's retaliating against me, or something's going on, and then I get to go through those steps again, and it always leads to 6 and 7. Okay, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to fight back? Are you going to go sit in your room in self-pity? Are you going to judge someone else? Are you, whatever it is that I do automatically, am I going to reach for something else to try to make the uncomfortable feelings go away? Or am I just going to surrender? Am I just going to let myself go to that place of humility? I also, when I was meditating last night, I got this visual. It's like, this might seem cheesy, but I guess here I go. I love visuals. Like, it's just, I love movies and I love to write, and they're very powerful for me. And I was meditating on 6 and 7, and I just thought of it's like London at night in the fog, and it's quiet. It's really, really quiet. And it's that moment right before the bell's going to toll, and you can't hear anything. It's just silent. And for me, that's 6. Like, I'm just sitting there. Okay, am I willing? And then the bell rings, and that's 7. It's just things are being lifted. I'm like being carried. And then I move on, The first set of steps, I go in and in and in. I look inward. And it's that turning point. 7, to me, is that turning point. Okay, now I'm going to have those defects removed, hopefully, whatever God's ready to take from me. And then I'm going to start going back out into the world. So it's kind of like the heart. You know, I feel like 6 and 7 for me is like, it's like it happens in my heart, you know, and if it doesn't happen in my heart, it's not really happening. And that's okay. Maybe it is. I don't know. I mean, that's what I've learned as well, is I don't have to question everything. I don't have to figure it out. I can just do my best. I can just keep walking. I can keep asking for help. I can keep surrendering. There was a guy in a meeting recently who was talking about time, and he said that to him, time just means that he's had more practice at surrendering than someone who's newer. And I really, for me, that rung true for me, because it's like, if I'm going to stay sober, I have to surrender, you know, at some point. Like, if I'm going to continue to stay sober, I need a power greater than myself to come in, because I can't do it on my own, and that's why I'm here in the first place. You know what I mean? So if I could do it on my own, I wouldn't be here. And thank God I hit a bottom hard enough that I was willing to let you guys in and willing to let God in. Because I can believe in God, but if I'm not letting him dwell in me or come in, for me it's just empty. So have I talked long enough? I think that's all I have, but thanks so much, you guys.
Thanks, Camille. Thanks, Camille. Our next panel speaker is going to be Adrian. When I first was asking people to be on the panels, you know, I would, when they were all open, I was saying, well, is there anyone that you feel more comfortable doing that you would rather do? Because if somebody, you know, a lot of people said specific ones. If somebody asked me that, I would have specific ones that I would feel a lot more comfortable speaking on. When I asked Adrian that question, his comment was, well, I've worked all of them, so it doesn't matter. And I thought that was perfect. I was like, wow, I wouldn't even have said that. I thought that was just awesome. I laughed, and he just kind of sat there. I don't think he understood why I was laughing. But so for him, we're going to read the 7th step prayer on 76. Second paragraph says, when ready, we say something like this. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. We have then completed step 7. This is Adrian.
Adrian, alcoholic.
Hi, Adrian.
First of all, I'd like to issue an apology to the committee. Unfortunately, I won't be able to stay the rest of the afternoon. I can't afford the registration fee. I'm sorry. I'll try and maybe make a donation. I do apologize for that. I feel bad about that. So, first thing that comes to my attention, the last time I went over this step, I was taking a group of guys at the prison through this step, and we looked at this prayer. And it occurred to me, and I could be wrong, and you know, some of you big book scholars might correct me, and I hope you will. But I don't think that the book refers to my higher power as my creator at any point up until this prayer. And I find that fitting because, first of all, I've done a 4th step at this point. I've looked at my character defects. I've identified them specifically. One of the things that I have here is a dictionary. It's something that, is a tool that was given to me by my sponsor to look up words in the dictionary so that I don't confuse them with what I think they mean. Obviously, if I've taken a thorough and honest moral inventory of myself, I know that my thinking is quite flawed and often very misleading and erroneous. So I have to go to an authoritative source to kind of sort of clear up that. And one of the things that I'm looking for when I go home after my 5th step, and this is immediately after my 5th step, the book tells me to go home and to make a review of my 4th step and to ask myself some very important questions, some questions I need to be honest with myself about. And if I can answer those to my satisfaction, then I look at the principle of willingness. And I think that's really what's emphasized in step 6. And if I'm willing, which when I look it up in the dictionary, it just says a particularity of deliberate action. If I'm ready to take this action, if I have the facility or the faculties to do this, and if I'm honest with myself about it, I look and I realize that, on some level, there isn't a whole lot that I can do about these character defects. There isn't enough power in my being to force them out or turn them into something else. Some of them I find that I'm hanging on to because I find them convenient. I like convenient type of defects of character because then it puts me in a position where I can absolve myself of some kind of responsibility or some kind of guilt or fear of some sort. And I've got a list, okay, when I do this step. And on this list I have defects. And I look at it sort of like a graph, okay? On one end I have my defects of character. And on the other end, I have this ideal that I'm supposed to work towards. This ideal, this principled idea. Everybody knows the opposite of a defect is a virtue. Okay, and virtues like prudence and temperance and fortitude and those types of things were not characteristics that I was generally responsible for as in my initial 4th step when I really looked at my resentments, my fears, my sex inventory. That just wasn't in there. There was a lot of fear. And I had to look at the conditions of those fears, and I had to come to terms with the fact that, like any person on this earth, I have character defects. There isn't a person in the world that doesn't. If you don't think you have them, I'd like to meet you, because I don't know anybody that does. The only difference is that these character defects will probably get me drunk. And that's the main purpose for me doing this step. The other aspect of this step 2 is the principle of humility. Something, again, was not prominently found in my 4th step. In my inventory, I found that humility didn't often play a factor in my resentments, clearly. Stuff like selfishness and arrogance generally did. When I look up humility, and I'm humbly asking God to remove these character defects, I'm courteously, respectfully asking Him to do that. I'm not doing it with the expectation that He will. And that's what that means to me when I come to step 7, when I'm prepared to. I'm not the one to determine how God is to make me into His ideal. I'm just simply making a respectful request from what I understand from the language that's being displayed here. That being said, like many people, I got to step 7, my initial time, I did the prayer, the skies didn't open up, and a white buffalo didn't come out and call my name or anything like that. It was really mundane. It didn't have any, real significant change in my consciousness. But what it was really, when I look at the prayer, and I'm referring to God as my creator, I'm acknowledging Him as a creator. He created me. He made me this way. You made me this way, and I'm asking you to take away these character defects. But not only that, I'm asking Him specifically, the character defects specifically that stand in the way of my usefulness to others and Him. Not the ones I think. Okay, remember, I'm working towards an ideal, but I have lots of ideals that I think are great and convenient, right? But this is God's ideal, and whatever that may be, I really don't know at this point. I like to look at the opposite side of that prayer on the opposite page, on page 77. It says, our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. In order for me to effectively do that, those character defects that prevent me from doing that need to be sort of put aside or removed. I think that the crux of this whole thing for me has always been to acknowledge that, I might have an idea of what it is I think God wants me to be or do. But at this point in this prayer, I should be exhibiting a willingness to be whatever it is that He wants me to be, to God's determination. Because if I go back to the contract I made in step 3 with Him, it means that from this point on, God is going to be the director and I'm the actor. That He's the one that's going to tell me, what the plan is, and I follow it, that sort of thing. Unfortunately, it's not always that clear. But when I take an inventory, and I'm really honest about it, I've been thorough and complete about it, I can acknowledge that there are certain things in there that, yes, I must definitely do. That it's very clear that I must do. There's some certain lessons that I need to learn. And most of that I find in the whole prism between a defect and the ideal is really just consciousness and awareness. And a consciousness and awareness that I didn't have before, an acknowledgement of these things. And I think that's really what they're implying when they talk about humility relating to this step is this acknowledgement of these character defects. What's more is that it wasn't just enough for me to tell God that, listen, God, I'm a selfish, fearful person. I had to go a step further, and I had to acknowledge why that was so. Everybody's afraid. Everybody, exhibits some level of selfishness. I don't think, like I said, I don't think anybody is without that blemish. And unfortunately for me, it destroys my life, and it destroys the lives of the people that I care the most about. So I had to really kind of look at why that was so. And when I looked at my inventory and I looked at my resentment specifically, I looked at the fact that there was an immense amount of fear, and that fears stemmed from from a serious lack of a firm foundation to stand on. Arliss would say, he put me back into stuff like, and this is kind of off the AA chart here. I apologize for that, but he'd say stuff like, you can't build your house on the sand. Otherwise it'll fall apart. It has to have a firm foundation in the rock, okay? I had the privilege of having a sponsor who was, initial sponsor who was quite metaphysical in a way, I guess, but he made those kinds of analogies for me to sort of make it clear that if God is to build a new character, a new person out of me, it needs to be on something firm. It needs to be on something concrete. And it needs to be something that I could be able to sustain sobriety on indefinitely. Because as far as I know, this book is about how to stay sober indefinitely. It's not a book on how to stay sober for a year or 6 months or 15 or 16 years. It's a book for indefinite sobriety, and the people that wrote it experienced that. They got sober, they did these things, they died sober. And so it's very important for me to kind of become an awareness what kind of principles I'm to adhere to from this point on. Okay, step 3, I made the commitment that God was going to kind of take over my life and direct my life, and the real purpose for me to exist now is to serve God's purpose. Okay, and then I make some determinations as to what needs to be addressed in my character in step 4, and I discuss it with somebody. But here's where I really turn the entire thing over to God. I say in the prayer, I say, my Creator, I'm now willing you should have all of me. It doesn't say just my character defects. It doesn't say just, the bad boy. It says all of me. My complete person, my complete and total being. That means that, at this point, from this point on, instead of character defects dictating my behavior at this point, principles have to take their place. It's not enough for Jesus to come to my house and run off all the spirits, okay? The evil spirits. If I don't put something in its place, they're going to come back sevenfold. And I have to be in touch with something that is going to take me to that ideal. Now, I can't say that I'm at that ideal. I think the only thing that really qualifies me for this step is the fact that there are character defects and I have them. And that's really it. That's really the only thing that qualifies me to talk on it, is that I have character defects. I can tell you about them specifically, though. I can tell you what they are. I know what they are. I'm not proud of them in most cases, and in a lot of cases, sometimes I try and hide them. And so that leads me to the next thing there's a lot of gray areas. There's a lot of little chicken shit stuff that I like to sort of slough off, right? And this is me. I don't know about anybody else, but I could do that for a while until it begins to threaten my sobriety, until it becomes a real issue with whether or not I'm going to pick up a drink again. Then it becomes a serious matter. Sometimes it has to get to that point, I'm afraid, but there's all kinds of gray areas. And again, this is something, instead of working for something that's convenient to me, and hanging on to those character defects that sort of, conveniently get me out of feeling, obligated or responsible for what comes out of my mouth or what I do, right? I have an obligation and a responsibility to take accountability for those things as well. I don't do that perfectly. I don't do that all the time. But I can say that as a process of working the steps over the last 16 years, it's been so that the notions of what that ideal is become increasingly more realistic, if that makes sense. Because again, I don't think that God wants to strike me perfect. Right? How great would that be? How convenient would that be for me? That'd be awesome, right? It would definitely put me in a position where I can, pass judgment on all of you, and not have to feel bad about passing judgment on all of you, because after all, well, see, I've accomplished this. I've done this. I've attained this level of enlightenment, and you have not, and therefore I'm absolved of any kind of personal responsibility for passing judgment on others, right? Isn't that nice? And I've been guilty of that, especially in the early onsets of my recovery. I found, though, that the ideal that God wants me to be is to be exactly where I'm at, and to be exactly who I am, regardless of any flaws, and to not hide those things under a bushel, but rather to just be them. Because ultimately, God, my Creator, that's exactly what He is. He created me that way. The only difference is today is that I live by principles that dictate how I behave and how I relate to the world. And that's really what this is about, is my character speaks for the things that I say and do with my fellows, with my people I live with, namely my family, my wife and child, my coworkers, everyone here, my sponsees, okay, those things. And really, realistically for me, the consciousness and the awareness is such that, I continue to take stock of these things in step 10 and acknowledge them and take accountability for them. But I learn and grow as a process of doing that, if that makes any sense. I don't know if it does to you, but that's the way it's worked for me. And bottom line is that when I'm ready and willing to make this commitment in step 7, it means that from this point on, my purpose, my focus, is to be suited to be of service, ultimately. And I think that's really what it's about, because, I'm eventually going to get to step 12 if I work the steps out of the book, and it's there that I get to reach out to other alcoholics And ultimately, that's what's keeping this alcoholics sober, is my work with others. And if that work is to be valuable, well, I have to continue to do the work that precedes it. So I don't know if that's enough time, but I think that's enough. Thanks.
Thanks, you guys. He was talking, and I was listening to somebody's phone going off, vibrating, and I was sitting here going, "Who's doing that? It's so rude." I want to listen to what he's saying, concentrating. I should have read the turn off your phone thing, and then it occurred to me it was my phone. So, so obviously I have no defects of character. The Al-Anon panel speaker is going to be Amy. I really appreciate her willingness to come and share on this step with us. It's kind of a little bit of late notice, but I asked her, but she was really willing to do it. So, Amy.
My name is Amy, and I am powerless over alcohol. I am TBA, to be announced. And I was trying to think of some kind of fun acronym. What does TBA stand for? And I turned to my husband and I said, could I be TBA somehow? And I couldn't come up with anything good, and I won't share anything that he said. And it was funny, I came up to Kristen and I said, "Kristen, I'm Amy Trump." And she said, "What?" I said, "I'm Amy Trump." And she said, "Oh, I thought you said, 'Hi, I'm going to get drunk.'" No, not today. So actually, as I was listening to the speakers and feeling of the spirit of what this fellowship means, I had to laugh because I'm totally codependent. And I had all of my stuff, my books, right? What did I leave in the car? My big book. Yeah. And so I had to ask to borrow a big book to take a look at someone's. And I just thought that was pretty funny that here I am codependent, and the codependent forgot. Wasn't as prepared as the codependent wanted to be. Isn't that totally codependent behavior? In any case, I am truly humbled. I give you thank you. Thank you for sharing your spirit with me, because I can feel that. As I have worked the steps, the first time when my qualifier went to recovery, I just thought, oh, phew, the problem's solved. And the program where my qualifier went said, no, guess what? You get to go to Al-Anon. So I went to Al-Anon, and my sponsor approached me, and she said, you know what? You need a sponsor. And thank goodness, she said to me, you are a dry drunk. You are an alcoholic in sheep's clothing. You are what we call codependent. So we're going to work the 12 steps with you through the big book. So it was really cool that I could sit with my qualifier and we could talk about 12 steps in the big book, because I'm not any different. Take the drink away from my qualifier, he too is codependent. So I worked the 12 steps. My sponsor took me by the ears and shoved me up against the wall and said, you're working the 12 steps. So 6 and 7 for me were, well, first of all, in my culture, I mean, if I go back and I think about experience, strength, and hope, I was absolutely in denial. I was in denial that there were any problems, that I had any problem. My grandfather passed away about 5 years ago, and as we're going through his military records, he served in the Korean War, and as we're going through his military records, I find out that he was discharged medically. And as I'm looking further, I knew that he was discharged medically, but for what? As I'm looking through this further, I realize that he was discharged medically due to depression and anorexia. The Korean War, a male anorexic, right? How does that happen? And then I start to see patterns of behavior through my family. And then I start to get that this is a family disease. This is not somebody's disease who has a chemical dependency. This is my disease. I own this. When I showered this morning, I was looking at my body and I was like, Heavenly Father, I still have these defects of character. And he said to me, honey, that's not a defect of character. Character's in here. It is not here. That was hard for me to hear because I want this to be a defect of character. And I want, damn it, for my higher power to take care of this. And what he wants me to do is take care of my heart. And that's what these steps have done for me. They've helped me to recognize that he's the one that can help me take care of, he's the one that can take care of those things like was shared. It's not me, it's him. I have to be humble. So as I really like the 12 by 12. I don't know if you look at the 12 by 12 very often, but in step 1, we know that we need to make a change. In step 2 and 3, we give our trust and faith to a higher power so that we can begin to recover. In steps 4, we examined our beliefs about right and wrong. In step 5, we admitted to God, ourselves, and another human being how we deviated from our personal principles. Now it's time to let go of these defects of character, which we have been carrying around for a while. So in the 12 by 12, on page 65 through 67, I know this is kind of long, but it really struck me when I read it the first time I went through the steps. And I don't know about you, but I've been in program for about 5 years. And dang, it isn't life cyclical. You go through the 12 steps, and then you go through the 12 steps again and again and again every single day. And you have sponsors, and as they're working on a step, you find that your life is working on that same step. And so it becomes challenging because you start to realize, holy crap, I work these 12 steps every single day. So as I've read and reread on page 65, I wanted to, rather than paraphrase, share with you what this says, because it truly is beautiful. It says, so step 6 is we are entirely ready to have God remove all of these defects of character. Am I ready? What am I hanging on to? Have I said I'm entirely ready? I think that I am not my qualifier, or my qualifier isn't my qualifier. I am his qualifier. More often than not, he says to me things like, okay, well, let me know how that works for you. Or, well, what's it doing for you? So anyway, that's what I'm getting to here in step 6. It says, how many of us have this degree of readiness? In an absolute sense, practically no one has it. The best we can do, with all honesty, is that all that we can summon is to try. If we look further down at the page, it says, practically everybody wishes to be rid of his most glaring and destructive handicaps. No one wants to be so proud that he is scorned as a braggart, nor so greedy that he is labeled as a thief. No one wants to be angry enough to murder, lustful enough to rape, gluttonous enough to ruin his health. No one wants to be agonized by the chronic pain of envy, or to be paralyzed by sloth. Of course, we don't always carry those glaring defects, but we may not have those extremes. We must recognize now that that we exult in some of our defects, we really love them. So I have to ask myself, do I love to be gluttonous? Do I love to be slothful? Well, who doesn't like to be those things? I don't. But do I have characters of gluttony? Do I have character defects of slothfulness? To think of liking lust seems impossible, but how many men and women speak love with their lips and believe what they say so that they can hide lust in a dark corner of their minds? And even while staying within conventional bounds, many people have to admit that their imaginary sex excursions are apt to be all dressed up as dreams of romance. Self-righteous anger can also be very enjoyable. In a perverse way, we can actually take satisfaction from the fact that many people annoy us, for it brings a comfortable feeling of superiority. Shit. How many times have I said, ooh, that guy's just totally annoying me? Oh, what have I just done? I've made myself superior. Gossip barred with our anger is a polite form of murder by character assassination, and it's a satisfaction for us too. Here we are not trying to help those we criticize. We are trying to proclaim our own righteousness. When gluttony is less than ruinous, we have a milder word for that too. We call it taking our comfort. How many times on a rainy day do I find myself taking my comfort in front of a TV with my ice cream? That's, yeah. We live in a world riddled with envy. To a greater or less degree, everyone is infected with us. Why else would we consume such great amounts of time wishing for what we have not, rather than working for it, or angrily looking for attributes we shall never have, instead of adjusting to the fact and accepting it? And how often we work hard with no better motive than to secure a slothful later on. We only call that retiring. Consider, too, our talents for procrastination, which is really sloth in 5 syllables. Yeah. So, again, I hear my qualifier saying to me, how's that working for you? Or, good luck with that. I may not have those 7 deadly sins, but I absolutely have those character defects. And sometimes it's my fear, because I'm not entirely ready to let it go, or else I wouldn't have it. For some reason, it works for me. If it protects me, if it keeps up a wall, that's what it's doing for me. And so step 6 says, are you entirely ready? I don't know about you, but when I worked my step 4, I thought, holy shit, I have how many pages? Really? And then I had to remember my conscious contact with my higher power. I was looking at my flesh. I was thinking about what I see in everyone else and how everyone else would look at me. I wasn't asking my higher power, what would you have me look at today? Which takes us to step 7, right? So step 7 says, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. If I have a list of 300 shortcomings, how can I say, okay, God, here's my list. You let me know what you're taking care of today. That's so easy. And absolutely, I have to say that when I worked my step 5, I felt, well, when I worked through 4 and 5, I thought, how am I going to do this? But then there was hope with step 6. In the Al-Anon steps to recovery, it says that step 6 is actually, I wish I found it right here. It is the step of prayer. So after having worked up through step 5, I realized that it wasn't about me anymore. I just worked these steps to realize it wasn't about everyone else, to realize that this was about me and my higher power. This was about me and the person who created me and what he would have me be, what he would have me do. And so I had to ask him, okay, higher power, these are my list. This is my list. I really feel like this particular thing is getting in my way. Can we work on this today? And then I can get that calm reassurance from him that today, that's what we're going to have removed. So in step 7, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. Like this gentleman, I look at the dictionary all the time because, damn it, I have to be right, and so I'm going to look it up, right? Because I'm a codependent. So what does humility mean? It is the quality or state of being humble, modest opinion of one's own importance or rank, being meek. Step 7 is humbly going to our higher power and saying to our higher power, okay, here's my character defects. Please help me. Is this the right character defect that I should be working on today? And then asking myself, is it still serving me a purpose? And if it is, can I be finished with that purpose? So how am I humbly asking my higher power to remove my defects of character? And boy, isn't that hard to give into? I don't know about you, but for me, I can't give up my power and control. It's really hard because I can fix it. I can fix everything. And that's how we often feel. When I talk to my qualifier, he says, it is what it is today. I have to accept that this is how it's supposed to be, like was shared earlier. It is what it is today. This is where our higher power has us today. I can accept that today. So this is all a process. Recovery is a journey, not a destination. How horrible. I hated to hear that all the time. I don't want to smell the roses. I just want to get to the end. I just want to finish. And my qualifier said to me one day, you know what? Life is about being rode hard and put away wet. I don't want to walk into heaven or wherever and look pretty. Because when you see someone looking pretty, what's your thought? I want to look like I've lived. I want to look like I've battled the battle, I've fought the fight. I've been in the depths with my higher power, and we've battled it out together. Because I can't have these defects of character removed unless I fight sometimes. Often, it's just about being. Often it's just about letting my higher power work with me and through me. And sometimes there comes a point when I have to say, but wait, that defect of character has worked for me. I really like it. It makes me feel good. I like to talk bad about someone else. And then I have to ask myself, what does it do for me? I have to ask my higher power how to help me see through that. And how to get that when I work that step 10, my nightly inventory, I can see that. I can see through my nightly inventory how my higher power has helped me eradicate my defects of character. It's like a big hole. I have myself filled with these defects of character, and if I get rid of that defect of character, then what? He's giving us these 12 steps. He's giving us our fellows that we can learn from so that we can remove that defect of character and fill that empty hole with hope, with trusting in our higher power, with trusting in the process, with encouragement to move forward today, recognizing that our defects of character become smaller and smaller and our list becomes shorter and shorter because he can. I am grateful. I know that my qualifier could handle being the alcoholic, because I don't think I could have. I know I have other things to take care of. But I'm humbled to know that this program isn't just for the chemically dependent. This program is for everyone. I know that my children did not look at their mother and father and say, oh yeah, Dad's the problem. I know they looked at me and they said, oh, watch out for my mom. I know that these defects of character do get me drunk. They keep me in a place where I don't want to be, in a place where my higher power cannot work through me or with me. I'm grateful that this program has come to me. I'm grateful that I had listening ears to hear. I'm grateful for the strength that's been given to each of us through this program, that we might see that we weren't given these defects of character because we're bad. We're given these defects of character because we're strong, because we're capable, and because we have it in us and others may not. We can survive through this so that one day we can see our Creator and we can tell Him thank you. With this, I'll take another 24.
Thank you.
Thanks to you guys. All right, we'll open it up to you guys. We have about, I don't know, just a few minutes. A couple people.
Hi, you guys. My name's Eric. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is June 10th, 2007. I'm told that happens to be the birth date of AA itself, so there you have it. The philosopher Nietzsche said that the person we know least is ourselves. Well, he died of syphilis, so he probably fell into that category, and I found that I fall into that category also. When I first came into these rooms back in 99, which is well before my current sobriety date, I didn't know anything about myself and the language of these 12 steps. I had worked in healthcare, and I had been in auditoriums and seen the 12 steps and 12 traditions on the walls, and I very judgmentally looked at them and scoffed, and at that time believed that I was simply better than that and would never have to stoop to such foolishness in order to live my life. And oh, how things change. I'm going to read a little paragraph, one of my favorite paragraphs. It's from page 62 of the big book, and it relates to our topic here. It says, "So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arrive out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible, and there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without His aid. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them even though we would have liked to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help." I was recently asked what I wanted out of life, and well, wow, that's a good question. And I really liked the answer that the person who asked me gave me. He said that his goals were a sober lifestyle, peace of mind, and confidence in the future. And I sum that up in the word serenity. And what I have found is that, like alcohol, I am also powerless over my emotions and feelings, and that causes me a lot of pain and suffering. And when we talk about character defects, I in the same way that I tried to will myself to recover from alcoholism and couldn't do it on my own, I also looked at my character defects and tried to will myself not to have them anymore. And since I'm powerless over my emotions and feelings, I couldn't do that. And I was slow to adopt a spiritual lifestyle. I thought that I could do this program without doing that, because that seemed somehow, I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see direct evidence of it, so I didn't believe in it. And I was slow to bring spirituality into my life. And I recently have, and I have been amazed at the benefit it has brought me in all aspects, and especially in dealing with my character defects. I pray to have my character defects removed every day, and I will always have them. I believe I will never be cured, like was mentioned earlier. For me, this is all about the process and the journey and not the result and the destination, because what is the destination, really? So every day, I ask to have my character defects removed, and some days they are, and some days they come back, and that's just how it is, because for me, this is a program of progress and not perfection, and that's okay, because I'm just trying to... Alcohol made me the reason that alcoholism and sobriety for me are so baffling is that the things that seem to feel good often end up feeling bad. And drinking for a while seemed to feel good until it was horribly destructive and made me feel terrible and ruined my life. And my character defects are kind of the same way. I fall back into them because sometimes they feel good, but they cause problems, and then they feel bad. And that's why I have to work on them. And thanks for listening. Thanks, Eric.
Okay, I just want to thank the panel speakers again. When I got to step 6 and 7 in the book, my sponsor said, these are 2 little paragraphs, and yet they're huge. And are you ready to work? And I said, I've been working. I've just done 5 steps. What do you want from me? And what I was told, my sponsor said, you haven't done anything. The first 3 steps, all you did was make a decision. Step 4, you wrote down a bunch of crap that you already know about yourself. Step 5, you told it to somebody. And, told me that step 6 and 7 is where the change comes. And that if we don't change, we don't stay. And my sponsor reminds me of that. I like it here. I want to stay. So help me God to keep doing that. You guys did an excellent job again on those steps. Thank you. By group conscious, the Fellowship of the Spirit Conference does not close each meeting with the Lord's Prayer. Instead, we encourage that this whole conference be treated with an attitude of continuous prayer. And we will then say the Lord's Prayer together at the close of this conference on Sunday. We're going to have a break, and then our local speaker, Christy, will be speaking at 10:45, so don't miss it.